Hello, beautiful souls. Thank you so much for joining us here at Earth and Sky, and each of you online. We always love your feedback and so appreciate the comments that you've been sharing with us lately. If you have any topic suggestions, always feel free to send those in to us as well. I was talking recently with my shaman students about transparency. One of the insights in the practice of the medicine ways is about the ability to see and the ability to be light and the ability to be transparent. Part of being a practitioner of walking in the old wisdom paths, and ideally for everyone in life, is to learn how to live your life transparently, to figure out how to make who you are on the outside match who you are on the inside. And in doing so, you will regain so much energy if you're not already there yet. I find that so many souls, when we come to this world, we so often, and I believe this is part of the culturally created self. If you've been with me in any of our Reiki talks, you've probably heard me talk about the authentic self, the culturally created self, and dormant blocks that we get inside ourselves. The culturally created self is something that begins all the way back when we are children. And it's where we want to please others and we want to be told, you're a good girl or you're a good boy, and we want to be able to feel like we fit in. And then as we grow, there might be some rebelliousness in those teenage years, but even in that, you're trying to fit in with your friends quite often. And then as an adult, you're deciding what roles do you want to take on? How do you want to be seen? What types of jobs do you want to do? What career are you in? And what does that look like for you? What type of family do you want? And we define these boxes around those parameters, and we start to feel like our personality needs to fit the stereotypes of what that is supposed to look like. Sometimes that comes off in what we think aesthetically we should look like. Sometimes it comes off as being that we feel like we want to be the person that's really hard and tough, or we want to be the person that's really kind and gentle, and everything in between all of that. When we start to take on labels and roles, and we start to identify with that, the more we do, the more we lose about remembering who we are authentically. Every single one of you has a beautiful soul inside you, and so many unique talents and characteristics and things that matter to you on an internal level. Every single one of you have things that make you shine, that make you smile, that bring joy and energy to your day and to your personality. And if you feel like you are at a point in life where you are not seeing those bright glimmers very often, and you're feeling as though you're a bit stuck in life, then it might be time to look at who are you trying to be? What roles are you trying to fit into? What box have you actually put yourself in, even though you may try to not be in anybody else's box? What have you put yourself in? One of the ways you may relate to this is when we talk about sometimes people put masks on and they want to be seen a certain way. Maybe someone is having a really grumpy period in life, and they just want to be alone, and they just really don't want to socialize, and yet they find themselves going out frequently and being around people, and so they put on a certain mask to try to hide how they're really feeling inside, and they don't have anyone that they actually confide in about that. That will start to wear on a person over time. We all need people that we can open up to, and we all need ways that we can release these blocks that come up inside us. Sometimes that can be done through journaling. Maybe you want to write a bunch of things down and then burn it because you don't want somebody to read it later. There are many different ways that we can find practices to get our frustration out, to get our fears out, to get our disappointments out, so that we can learn to rise into recognizing who we actually are. When we are living a life where we are trying to be seen a certain way by others, and it's not how we actually feel, our energy is drained a little bit more every single day from that. That is where we fall into these points where we feel like we're in a rut, or no one understands us, or we just feel maybe mad at life or dissatisfied with everything. One of the ways to truly break out of that is to start bringing together who you really are and who you are showing yourself to be. If there are some characteristics and traits that you feel like you are inside, and those are not things that you actually want to be, then that's where some of that inner work comes in. If you're struggling with things with anxiety or depression and things like that, then there's a lot of work to be done to help to heal those parts within. Yet there is there is a path where you can start to find transparency and move into a place of being where who you actually are is also who you're willing to show the world. I think a lot of times in our culture, there are two different paths that often happen. Sometimes we feel like we should never talk too good about ourselves or feel too proud about ourselves, and we are trying to always dim our light so that we don't make anyone else feel uncomfortable. Even when you know you're really good at something and you know you really enjoy something, you may dim those properties around others because you don't maybe want to be judged by others, or you don't want others to feel bad, or there's a lot of different excuses for that. But it also then starts to dim the light of your soul, where you feel unsatisfied and unhappy. There are so many different ways where we can come into a place of being where we are living in complete authenticity, where you learn to love who you are. You learn to love the things that you crave. For some, the things that really inspire them are going out and being social, and the more people they are, the more energized they become. For others, it's about curling up with a book, turning the TV off, having no noise at all, and being able to just go into your own world. And that is how you energize. Every single one of us are unique and different with what heals us and what brings us joy. So why do so many of us feel like we need to act a certain way or be seen in a certain light to gain acceptance from others, when truly the fact is that, as a good friend of ours had said, 1/3 of people will always like and approve of you, a third will never really like you, and that's okay too, and another third really won't care. So why waste that extra time and energy trying to garner attention and favor when what you're doing is either dimming your light or exercising so much energy in ways that you don't really need to? It's about learning to come in touch with what matters to you. What is important to you? What do you want to spend your time and energy doing? And who are you really? So often people will try to define, if you say, who are you? Or what are you? People will talk about either their job or their likes, their hobbies. They may talk about their achievements, or they may talk about their losses. And none of those actually are who you are. Who you are is the light of your soul. When you can get in touch with looking in the mirror and seeing yourself and figuring out what are the words, what are 5 words that describe who you are that have nothing to do with roles or titles or responsibility or failures or achievements. What would those 5 words be? Getting in touch with those 5 words will help you to come in touch with who you authentically are. And then the goal is to come into transparency. When you have nothing to hide, that is where you come into a great place of healing. When you find that you have nothing to hide, you're not worried about somebody discovering skeletons in your closet because you've already opened the door so people can see whatever is there. There is such a great liberty about putting everything on the line and being authentic, being willing to share those moments in your life where you were very vulnerable, being willing to share those moments in your life where you had great pain, those moments in your life where you really messed up, and if you could, maybe you wish you could go back and change it, Or maybe you've come into the place where you realize it's so great that you failed at those things because that's what helped you to learn so that you could be where you are now. When we learn to love every single part of who we are, and we learn to just let ourselves share that, to be authentically who we are, not hiding anything, there is such freedom in that. We regain our energy, we regain our ability to have harmony within ourselves. Being transparent, living a life of transparency, means there is harmony between who you say you are and who you actually are. Thinking about that for a moment. Who do you say you are, and who are you really? How can you bring harmony between those two aspects so that they are one and the same all the time? Who you say you are and who you actually are. When we can learn to let our true self be seen without any masks, without any fear, there is a liberation of the soul that happens in that. There is a freedom where you learn to shed any of those areas that had once triggered anxiety and fear. Instead, you have enough confidence in yourself to be willing to be seen. Or maybe you reach a point where you are just so sick of always trying to wear masks in front of everybody that you're ready to just take them all off and see what happens when you are who you are and you let your soul show as your soul is, recognizing that you do not need the approval of anybody else except yourself. You need to love yourself first. When you learn to love yourself, then you can be there to feel love from others as you share love with others. You might share so much love with so many people, but you will never be able to feel any of it until you love yourself first, because your ability to feel love from others is linked directly to how much you love yourself, because that's how much you let into yourself. Your ability to trust others is linked exactly and precisely to how much you trust yourself to be okay if you get hurt. Recognizing that there is strength and vulnerability. Recognizing that your real power is found in openness, in being transparent. That's where real power is. Strong enough to be vulnerable. Recognizing also that what you're trying to conceal actually is probably visible already. So often people will feel like the masks that they try to wear are fooling everybody else and that we are showing just what we want to show. But I'm sure you have your fair share of people in your life that you can tell are wanting to be seen a certain way, and yet who they actually are doesn't really match up with that image they're trying to show. It's always easier to see from the outside in instead of from the inside out. So know that if you are trying to be seen a certain way, it is taking so much of your energy, and instead you could invest that energy into yourself, into being the person that you are proud to be, being the person doing the things that you are proud to see yourself doing, proud to be behind, proud to live in the soul that you are, regardless of titles or roles or duties, failures or achievements. Learn who you are and feel the joy in that. Recognizing that you are not your joys. Recognizing that you are not your wounds. Recognizing you are not your roles or titles. And you are not your sorrows. And you are not your achievements. Those are outer expressions of what we are doing here. But when you start to first get in touch with the beauty of your soul, the purity of your soul, the peace that can fill your soul when you find your place of power is in transparency and being willing to love who you are as you are in this place right now, there is such power and such freedom and such beauty in this. Being able to observe yourself, being able to love yourself, being able to recognize that every time you take a step that seems like it's in the wrong direction, instead of thinking of it as a failure, think of it as a learning opportunity, that now you're one step closer to achieving what you want to achieve. Being able to find freedom and letting yourself explore in this life. One of the things that ego does, we've talked a lot about ego over the past year or so, but one of the things that ego often does is it wants to protect you. The role of ego is that it is trying to protect you. The voice of the ego, unfortunately, is the voice that will always tell you you can't change, you shouldn't try, you aren't good enough, or maybe it will say things like you're too good for that, or you're in competition with others in different ways. The ego stops you from growing and tries to stop you from changing because that is its way of trying to put you behind a wall where you will be safe. But it's not really a wall of safety. The wall that the voice of the ego puts you behind, it closes you off from everyone else and it blocks the light out. So as the voice of the soul starts to get louder, as you learn how to be transparent in your life and embrace all of the different aspects of your life, then you start to break out of that wall, that shell, the klipot that the voice of the ego puts you into, and your soul starts to get brighter. And as the wall comes down, cracks of light start to come in that empower you to see that who you are inside already is magnificent and you are worthy. Allowing yourself to be seen fully and openly lets in the light, and it's where you start to discover that softness actually is strength. Being able to speak truthfully, even if your voice shakes at the thought of it or when you start, allow yourself to continue. Believe in yourself. Let old stories and roles and titles that you've held yourself to, let those fall away without regret as you lean into the light of your soul and you lean into recognizing who you are, why you came to this planet, what is your soul's job here in this life. Let yourself rise into that and let old stories and old voices of the ego fall away. Trust that your transparency actually is your strength. Be open about who you are. Be open about the mistakes. Be open about the successes. Let yourself rise as you believe in yourself and you see that you are equal to everyone else. I feel like it is such an important thing where we start to find our balance, where ego doesn't get overactive and ego isn't underactive, is when we recognize that our light is no more than anyone else's light. And our light is also no less than anyone else's light. When we all start to believe in ourselves and we believe in the power that everyone else has around us as well, it is an amazing and beautiful thing that happens. So allow yourself to walk as light. Allow love to flow to others and simply be authentic. Allow yourself to practice the act of transparency, bringing harmony to the authentic part of who you actually are and what you say you are, your inner self and your outer self, bringing those closer until they are truly the same thing, and your thoughts and your actions and your deeds and your words all match up with one another. One of the tests that you can do to see if you are in this space is if you think about everything that you think in your head, every single thought that comes through. If there was somebody behind you broadcasting it on a megaphone, would you be comfortable with that? If you're comfortable with that, then you are living a life where you are being authentic and you are living in your truth, finding ways to find peace in yourself, rising into love, seeing the equality that is available to all of us. And if you see somebody else that is struggling, help them to be able to rise up as well. As you find your light, it becomes even easier to then help others to find their light as well, so that we can all live in the authenticity. There's a beautiful blessing that is read as, "May I live unveiled. May I let my soul speak clearly. May my life be a mirror of truth. And may I remember who I truly am, knowing that transparency is freedom, transparency is power, and transparency really is love." I hope you can find some ways to practice this week, looking at where can you bring more transparency through bringing that authenticity in, and finding out how to bridge harmony between your outer self and your inner self. Wherever you find yourself at points of the day, if you've been around people and you come home and you feel very exhausted, take a moment to examine, when you were out with people, were you being authentically yourself? Or were you trying to play a role, or were you trying to portray yourself as something that maybe isn't actually you? Work on bringing harmony between those two realms so that you can be authentically who you are, proud of who you are, and excited to be equal with all the others around you as well. Hope that gives you some good food for thought this week, and we will look forward to seeing you next week. If you haven't already, please check out our website, earthandskyscenter.com, and we are getting ready to do another round of travels, teaching on the road. If you are in another location, whether it's another part of the U.S. or Canada or a different country, give us a shout out if you'd like to host classes in your area. We are always interested in finding new places that we expand and bring our classes on the road. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you.